Okay, so another thing that you're going to want to learn how to do as you work your way through After Effects would be to learn how to use techniques called masking techniques. So in this case, that's usually done. You can do that on static images or on video footage, right? So I'll just pick some video footage here just to show how that works. And so here, you got this kind of like abstracted, kind of like close up of something that looks like a pretty abstracted, kind of like movement, right? And but let's say instead of using the whole thing, I just wanted to use like a little portion of this particular like video footage that I shot instead of the whole thing, especially maybe I didn't like that thing out there, right? So uh, this is where masking can come in very handy. So again, as long as I have my item selected down here, this layer selected, I can go ahead and grab this pen tool, and I can go ahead and like kind of create like a mask by just drawing like a shape, right, of some kind. So let's say that that looks good, and you'll notice that what that just did is it just deleted everything um, that was outside of the mask boundaries, right, outside of the mask borders. So this is kind of an interesting thing you can do. If I click the twirl down now and look deeper into this, you'll see that now I have a little, like I've got like a mask that's been added in. Like if I look at my shape layers, I'm not going to have masks added in there because I didn't draw one into those yet. So I've got a mask that's been added to this, and I can click on that and go further deeper down into the mask, and I can sort of start playing around with the mask itself, right? So I can change the feather of the mask, which you'll notice here. If I change that, it kind of makes the edges look a little fuzzy, so that can be pretty nice. If I want to change the opacity of the mask, I can do that. If I want to expand the edges of the mask, I can go that way too. It'll just kind of change it around a little bit. And so, now I've got like kind of an interesting, weird sort of pulsating shape that might be interesting for my composition, right? So that's a basic mask. You can mask like a still image. You can mask things that are um, like video footage. You can mask, mask over shapes. There's all kinds of things that you can do here. So that might be kind of an interesting deal in some ways if I wanted to use it that way. But another thing that I can do, which you probably guessed you could do by now, is if I click on this, anything where I have a stopwatch, I can keyframe, right? So if I wanted to, I could click my mask path. That'll drop a keyframe there, one of the diamonds. I can move forward a little ways, and I can click and drag on one of these mask shapes, and I can actually like morph this mask and turn that into its own animated like element, right? So could go forward a little ways and do the same thing here where I add this. Maybe this one will come out, this goes off the screen. So now the computer will kind of interpret the things that are happening here and change it for me, right? I can keyframe anything. There's a like a stopwatch for. But so let's say I take my other piece of footage that's longer underneath, and then I start adding this to it, right? So now I've got this these two things that are sort of starting to move together in some way, right? And you can see that the mask just basically knocked out what was behind it. If for some reason I wanted my mask to be reversed, like I wanted the mask to like sort of poke a hole in something instead of mask away the edges, I could click here where it says add and go to the one that says subtract, and then that'll kind of do the opposite, where I've got my mask has created like a hole in the bigger piece of footage. So usually it doesn't really matter which way you go, just want to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? So there's an awful lot I can do there that's pretty wild, right? But the cool thing is, like, let's say that's all fine, but I also want to move this whole thing across the screen, right? So I could click this, I could go down here to transform again, and I could go to position, go back to the beginning of my composition, click on position and maybe scale, and drag this thing over and make it smaller, right? starts like maybe down here, move it forward a little ways, and then you know, drag it up here, and then like make the scale of it much larger. And now I've got like a, something totally different happening than what I had before. So now I'm both masking and animating the mask and moving the layer, the whole layer itself across the screen. So it's a lot of crazy stuff you can do. Really, really fun, very experimental, different things that you can kind of add in there and kind of keep playing around with. So you're probably going to want to try to just play with these things, get the hang of how the timings work, try to visualize what you want things to kind of be like, and then try to make them happen. If you just kind of putter around with software, you can get lost pretty fast. So this will be enough to get you into trouble for quite a while.